In today's NBA, players from all across the globe play in harmony as they dominate on the courts, night in and night out. However, this wasn't always the case. Back in 1891, when basketball was first invented, it was a game completely dominated by white males. Then in the 1940s, before the ABA and NBA were founded, there was a player who, while being faced with discrimination, hate, and the overall pressures of being a colored individual, single-handedly etched his name in basketball history. This is his incredible story. Born in Ogden, Utah on December 21, 1923, Wataru Misaka was the son of a Japanese-American barber. From an early age, Misaka was forced to become a hard-working individual who could withstand the toughest of trials, a quality that would serve him in 1939 when his father suddenly passed away, leaving the 15-year-old to be the sole provider of the family. Around this time, the Great Depression, one of the worst economic downturns in United States history, was coming to an end. This was a decade defined by widespread unemployment and steep declines in industrial output, a time in which food, money, and employment were scarce. As if that wasn't bad enough, it was also around this period that World War II first began. This was a dangerous time to be Japanese American, especially when considering that on December 7, 1941, Japan would attack the U.S., bombing Pearl Harbor in an effort to cripple the naval force. Due to this, in early 1942, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed an executive order in which 120,000 Japanese Americans living in western parts of the United States were to be taken from their homes and forced to live in solitary confinement camps.
I ask that the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
Luckily for Misaka, his family had roots in Utah, and so they were allowed to remain there rather than be led to Topaz, where thousands of Japanese Americans were being held. In general, the 1940s were a living hell for colored people living in America. It remains one of the darkest chapters in American history, and one of, if not the most, shocking violation of human and civil rights in the 20th century. Due to his Japanese ethnicity, Misaka was a regular target of racial discrimination. He was denied service at restaurants, shops, and completely shunned on the streets. To avoid animosity and hatred from the other students at school, he was forced to leave and would have to deal with the rejection all through his life, one way or the other. So he turned to the one thing that would accept him: basketball. While working part-time jobs to provide for his family, Misaka took up the sport after watching and becoming inspired by the Harlem Globetrotters. In 1940, he would give school a second chance as he attended Ogden High School and played for the Institute's basketball team while working his way up to the role of team leader. Eventually, he helped guide the team to a state championship title, followed by a regional championship title in 1941. In 1942, after graduating from high school, Misaka continued his education at Weber Junior College, now known as Weber State University, where as a 5'7" guard, he led the Wildcats to 2 straight championship titles in 1942 and 1943. In his 2 seasons there, he would be named as MVP and Junior College Athlete of the Year. Eventually, Misaka enjoyed a stellar prep career at the University of Utah, where luckily for him, he was thrusted into the starting lineup when the Ute center, their captain, best athlete, and leading scorer, went down with a sprained ankle on the eve of the postseason.
Wat Misaka, midget of the squad, one of the finest ball wrestlers and floor players in the business. A Japanese American. He served in the Pacific in Army intelligence, and that's the key to the kind of basketball he plays. Intelligence.
In his first year at the University of Utah, the team would end the regular season with an 18-4 record and would go on to play in the National Invitation Tournament. Despite all of his on-court success, many American fans were in spite of Misaka due to his Japanese ethnicity. At road games, spectators threatened him from the stands, shouting racial slurs. Overall, there was a sizable amount of animosity, and Watt suffered the effects of that. On the other hand, Misaka, being the fast, tenacious point guard he was, played through. With so much to prove, he outworked every man on the court, no matter the assignment. In his mind, he wasn't a 5'7" point guard. He thought he could play any position, even center if you asked him to. Eventually, with his skills and dedication, he would help guide the team to the 1944 NCAA championships. That same year, Misaka would interrupt his basketball career to serve in the U.S. Army, where in 2 short years, he rose to the ranks of staff sergeant. While serving, he was ironically set to be a part of the invasion of Japan. However, the dropping of the infamous atomic bomb on Hiroshima would prevent that from happening. Instead, in 1947, Misaka returned to the University of Utah, where he once again began playing for the Utes as a key member, helping them win the 1947 NIT championship, his second title in just 4 years. That same year, he was selected by the New York Knicks as the first pick in the 7th round of the Basketball Association of America draft. Back then, pro basketball, let alone the draft, was no big deal. Unfortunately, being Japanese American was. It was here where he debuted as not only one of the shortest players, but the first player of color and the first player of Asian descent in professional basketball.
It's no good. It's down under the boards. Little Misaka takes it up. He gets rid of the ball. Hear that crowd cheer for him.
Misaka turned in one of the best games of his career, covering his man like a blanket and making one of the most amazing shots ever made in the fieldhouse. It had to be seen.
Fans isn't hard to name. Wataru Misaka, the courageous little spark plug who played his heart out every minute. When he left the floor, he got the loudest, most heartfelt ovation ever heard in the fieldhouse. Everyone in the place got to his feet and paid resounding tribute to little Wat, who has more guts than I, along with thousands of others, have ever seen. The people went
Crowds
wild.
love a Cinderella story. They know the extra burden that keeps tearing away at an athlete whose racial strain happens to be different. The Utes have a word for it, and his name is Misaka.
Keep in mind that back in those days, people of color were considered anyone who wasn't white. Earl Lloyd, the first African American on the other hand, did not play in the NBA until 3 years later in 1950. Misaka's timing couldn't have been any better, considering the fact that just 8 months earlier, MLB legend Jackie Robinson made history by breaking baseball's color barrier. And while Robinson broke the color barrier in baseball, Misaka did the same in basketball, but with much less fanfare. After receiving a rare guaranteed contract of $4,000 by owner Ned Irish, Wataru Misaka would play just 3 games for the Knicks, scoring a total of 7 points with an average of 2.3 points and 0 assists. Fairly respectable numbers for a rookie coming off the bench. Despite this, on November 19, 1947, after 2 home wins and a day after the 3rd game, Irish called Misaka to inform him that he was cut from the team. Strangely enough, the team had already played a full preseason, 3 league games, and had already been cut down to 12 players when the decision was made. Many critics alleged that the issue of race was at the root of why he was cut from the team. Misaka, however, never credited his release to racism, but rather to the fact that the Knicks supposedly had too many guards. Regardless, he never played basketball again. Since the day he was cut by the Knicks in the fall of 1947, Wataru Misaka had never come back to New York, much less the Garden. In 1949, 2 years following his release, the BAA and National Basketball League, which had previously allowed black players to play in the league, merged to form the NBA. The 3-year history of the BAA would be kept over the 12-year history of the NBL, making it so that Misaka would be considered the first non-white player in NBA history. Furthermore, Misaka was offered a place with the Harlem Globetrotters, but he declined. Had he accepted, the deal would have once again made him the first Asian American to play for a team. Instead, after his time with the Knicks, Misaka left the world of basketball to return home as a married man and earned his degree in mechanical engineering. Eventually, he would be inducted into the Utah Sports Hall of Fame, and although he never got the chance to start for the Knicks, his number and name still stands in the rafters and hallways of the Madison Square Garden. As a pioneer of the game, the modern NBA may have forgotten Wataru Misaka's legacy and what he meant for non-Caucasian pro athletes, but history will never forget.